Companies that have an ideal customer profile have a 68% higher win rate. Early stage companies that actually build out an ideal customer profile are more likely to hit true product market fit and accelerate their path to true revenues. Here's a big question though. If ideal customer profiles are so great, then why isn't every single SaaS founder doing an ideal customer profile exercise, just absolutely crushing it? So on this episode, as I reflect on every single ideal customer profile exercise that I've done for my own companies and the 300 plus founders that I've coached who have all built out an ideal customer profile effectively to drive growth, I'm gonna walk you through the 3 principles that you absolutely need to know on how to nail your ideal customer profile, how to do it the right way so that you can actually start your path to the next stage of growth. Intro. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Unstoppable. I'm TK, and on this channel, I help SaaS founders like you grow your SaaS business faster with an unstoppable strategy. So if you're new to this channel, welcome. I drop an episode every single Sunday with actionable strategies and tactics from the trenches on how to grow your SaaS business faster. So be sure to hit that subscribe button and that bell icon. That way you'll get notified every single time I drop an episode with the TK energy. Now, if you're already part of this community, we just hit 82,000 subscribers. We are driving to 83,000 and beyond. So my people, thank you for being part of this community. So in my last company, Iterative, our original product and our original website was basically saying email productivity for anyone. And it was so bad because in my homepage, I actually cycled through all the different roles that we served. Pretty quickly, one of my mentors sat me down and said, TK, you gotta focus. You gotta do a proper ideal customer profile. You need to focus on one segment of the market. And when we did, we actually ended up accelerating growth. We ended up breaking through all the choke points that we had. And through that ideal customer profile exercise, we decided to focus on salespeople. And that's how we became one of the pioneers of the sales engagement industry. Fast forward to today, I've worked with 300 plus founders on building out their ideal customer profiles. In fact, I was at a dinner in New York. I was with a bunch of founders that I am coaching inside of my SaaS go-to-market coaching program. And half the table were founders that had been with me for 3-4 years. They're continuing to accelerate their growth. And as I talked to them, each of them said, you know what, TK, as I look back, one of the most critical inflection points in working with you, in working in our growth strategy and building out our go-to-market motions was the ideal customer profile exercise. And honestly, I know that ideal customer profile is important. It's one of the core tenets of everything I talk about in this channel, but it blew my mind because these were founders at 3 million, 5 million and beyond. In fact, I got an email from a founder who added tens of millions of ARR to his revenue base. And he was like, dude, ICP, that's really what nailed it for us. So I wanted to do an episode on ideal customer profiles because every founder that I meet thinks they have an ICP, but then they work with me, they follow my 29-point process, and they realize they didn't have an ICP, but when they follow the process, they're able to unlock growth. So in this episode, I'm gonna walk you through the 3 principles you absolutely need to know based on all of my experience in doing ideal customer profile exercises so that you can nail your ICP and accelerate growth as well. Now, if you're excited to dig in, go ahead and smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm, and let's dig right into it. So the first thing I want to explain is what is an ICP. An ideal customer profile is pretty simple as a concept. The ideal customer profile looks at 3 key vectors. For any market that you're targeting, you want to make sure you're solving an urgent and important problem. You also want to make sure that the market you're targeting not only has that urgent important problem, but they also have budget, meaning they can actually spend money to solve this problem. And the third thing is you want to make sure that segment of the market is actually underserved. So you want to make sure it's urgent and important, they have budget, and they are underserved. That's what makes for a really effective ideal customer profile and a really effective target market. It's pretty simple. But as you know very well in building companies, simple doesn't mean easy. The devil is in the details. So let's get into the key principles that I follow when we're building out ICPs that take it from a notional idea of, yeah, we totally have an ICP to, yeah, we have an ICP and it's clearly driving our go-to-market strategy. Principle number 1 is you need to make sure that you're building out an ICP and targeting a market where you are 10 times better than the competition. A lot of times I meet founders who are struggling to drive growth. They have initial revenues, they're looking to scale, but they have multiple ICPs that they're serving and they're trying to go after all of those ICPs. So when we're trying to build out an ideal customer profile exercise and follow it, they're struggling to make those choices. So one of the things we always look at is, out of all the markets that you can go after, where can you actually be 10 times better than the competition? Now, sometimes you might say there is no competition. It's a bunch of humans and we're going to use AI to replace them. Or you might say it's a bunch of humans using spreadsheets and we're going to replace the spreadsheets. A lot of times we as founders underestimate how much of a formidable competitor that is. So when you're building out your ideal customer profile, one of the things that I always look at is, where can we be 10 times better than the competition? And when you start to bake that in your ideal customer profile, when you start to make some of those tough choices, all of a sudden you're starting to get a real ideal customer profile versus kind of a wish list. Now, the second principle that I always follow when I'm building out an ideal customer profile is actually looking at data. Now, there's two types of data that we can tap into. There's internal data and there's external data. So when I'm working with companies that are 3 million, 5 million, 10 million, 100 million, in fact, we sold a tout app to a company called Marketo. They were a market leader. Tout app was backed by Andreessen Horowitz. We scaled that business. We sold it to Marketo. And then all of a sudden I joined their executive team and I was there as VP of strategy, and Marketo was going through a 2-year turnaround. Marketo was fast approaching $500 million in ARR. And one of the key things we did to actually define the growth strategy, to figure out how we're going to unlock growth and create value, was an ICP exercise. I've seen ICP exercises get done at all stages, at pre-revenue stages, at $1 million, 3 million, 10 million, all the way up to fast approaching $500 million. And the biggest thing that we saw was, when you look at internal data and external data, when that external and internal data influences your decision-making process for your ICP tends to be better and your go-to-market tends to be better, and therefore growth starts to ensue. So one of the things I always look at is revenue data. So if you do have revenues, I always look at that revenue data to understand how it can influence the ICP, where you can actually be more effective. I also look at external data. When we're building out an ICP, we follow a 29-point process. So we're pulling in data from all different angles to really pick the right ICP. And you can also tap into external data sources to understand which market is going to be better for you. Now, external data sources could be industry data, it could be competitive analysis, it could be any type of data that is available that gives you clues into where there is an underserved market with an urgent, important problem. So you really want to collect all that data and start to understand what your ICP should be versus just guessing. Now, before I go to the third principle, and I have a bonus one for you, before I go into that, let me pause here for a second. One of the biggest things I've learned in doing ICP exercises for my own companies and for companies that I coach, and seeing so much success with the companies that I've worked with, is the companies and founders that are effective treat ICP, ideal customer profile, as an actual exercise instead of just a thing that they wrote in a paper napkin or in their head. When you actually treat your ideal customer profile as a process, where you're really thinking conceptually about what are the different markets, where can we be 10x better, what's the data points, what are the data points that we can look at, and then based on that you're making decisions, that's when everything changes. That's a fundamental difference between just a random ICP thing that you did and a checklist that you did, or some random thought that you had about your ICP and then ran with it, versus a proper ICP exercise. So if you're starting to get the power of why an ideal customer profile is so important, so powerful, and why companies that take it seriously see so much growth, see an increase in win rates, get to product market fit faster. If you start to see the power in this, starting to get a little excited about building out your ideal customer profile, can I just get a yes in the comments below? And also smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It just loves it when you do that. Also, if you're in this stage where you're building out your go-to-market strategy, you're figuring out your ideal customer profile, and you're struggling to figure out which segment of the market do you go after, how do you properly define an ICP, how do you pick the right one, and you want the cheat codes on how to do this the right way, this is why I run my SaaS go-to-market coaching program. You don't have to go anywhere right now. I'll link to it below. I'll also tell you more about it at the end of this video, but right now, let's go to principle number 3. All right, principle number 3 is where all this starts to come together. Principle number 3 is you want to make sure you track your ICP all the way down to your go-to-market motions. When Marketo did the whole ICP exercise, the entire organization had to get aligned on the ICP. So we started to look at, is it an ICP lead or a non-ICP lead? Is it an ICP deal or a non-ICP deal? And it started to show up in the reporting. So we tracked not just how many leads did we generate, we tracked how many of the leads are ICP leads versus non-ICP. When we created an opportunity, was it an ICP opportunity or a non-ICP opportunity? And when we looked at the wins and the revenue, we looked at, well, was it an ICP win or a non-ICP win? Why? Well, one of the things we learned is when it was an ICP deal, the win rates were higher, the sales cycles were shorter, and the retention was higher, and the expansion was higher. So not only did we win bigger deals faster, but they bought more over time. They didn't churn. So we wanted ICP deals. So we went even further. At that kind of scale, we made it where you would get full commission on an ICP deal. And if it was a non-ICP deal, you wouldn't get full commission. You'd get less commission. So it incentivized the salespeople to actually reject the non-ICP deals, which were inherently bad for the business, and just focus on the ICP deals. It also encouraged the marketers to be accountable to creating ICP leads versus a bunch of leads that are never going to buy. This is something that worked really well for that scale of business. But even for the founders that I coach that are at 300K ARR or $1 million ARR or $3 million ARR, this is the discipline we install very early. We install the system so we can understand what is an ICP lead and not an ICP lead. Is it an ICP deal and a non-ICP deal? And this completely changes the trajectory and the discipline around the business. The way I really know that a sales team is truly following through with an ICP is if they're rejecting the calendar invites when it's a non-ICP deal. That's super scary. You're like, well, I might win this deal. But at the same time, you know that it's got a lower win rate. It might take even longer. They'll buy less. They'll probably churn. And it's bad for the business. So I might as well open up that calendar slot for an ICP deal. And this principle has taught me that a lot of times founders and CEOs and go-to-market teams will just create an ICP and then it'll collect dust. So principle number 3 is to make sure you mobilize it. You want to make sure you mobilize your ICP across your team, across your organization, and you're living and breathing it. And you're thinking about, is this an ICP customer or not? Is this an ICP lead or not? Because you want to make sure that you're staying true to your ICP. All right, so now I promised you a bonus one. So let me give that to you. And then we're going to recap. And then I'm going to tell you how you can implement all of this. Now, the bonus principle that I always tell founders is I meet founders, and one of the things founders struggle with, and I struggle with this too, is the difference between the total addressable market and your ideal customer profile. We all started our companies because we want them to be big. We want them to be maybe $100 million company or $1 billion company or $1 trillion company. Maybe you want to be the first founder, solo founder running $1 trillion company because of AI. Either way, we dream big. But one of the toughest things to do is start to whittle that down to an ICP. A lot of times founders will say, well, I want to go after multiple ICPs because each of these ICPs are too small. So one of the tricks, one of the mental tricks that I do during coaching founders through their ICP is to tell them, look, Amazon started by selling books online in 1999 when not a lot of people were online and not a lot of people were buying online, and let alone buying books without maybe reading it first. So that was a pretty small ICP, but then they grew over time. They earned the right to sell everything everywhere. So one of the mental tricks that I get founders to do is don't just think about your ICP as your world domination play. Think about what the revenue number you're at right now is. Think about the revenue number you want to get to and define the ideal customer profile to get to that next stage of revenue. And then every single time you hit that next stage of revenue, you can revisit the ICP and then you can continue to iterate on it. This is why some of those founders I was getting dinner with that I've worked with for multiple years are still thinking about their ICP, because as they continue to get growth, they continue to expand their ICP and tweak their ICP to capture that next level of revenue. So that's the bonus one I had for you, where if you're struggling with multiple ICPs and trying to really whittle it down, really want to start to think about, well, if I'm at $1 million and I want to get to 3 million, what does the next 2 million of ARR really look like? And what should the ICP be for that? And that will help you to start whittle it down for this next stage of growth. And then you can keep expanding it as you get to 3, you get to 6 and to 10 and beyond. All right, let's recap. The key components of an ICP is you're solving an urgent and important problem for a target market that has budget and is underserved. That's when you get to the green. That's the sweet spot. Now, when you're building out your ICP, number one, you want to figure out what segment of the market can your ICP target where you're 10 times better than the competition. Number two, as you're building out your ICP, remember, it's not just a random thought in your head that's your ICP, it's an actual exercise. You want to inform it with data. Every single time I work with founders on their ICP exercise, we do a 29-point process. So really make sure that you're attacking in the right way and getting it right, because it's the foundation for everything you do for your go-to-market. And number three, you want to mobilize your ICP. You want to make sure you track your go-to-market motions, and you want to track if a lead is an ICP lead or a non-ICP lead, if an opportunity is an ICP opportunity or a non-ICP opportunity, all the way down to revenue, retention, churn, and expansion. And so now you know the 3 core principles that I apply to really build out an effective ideal customer profile. Now, what you may not know is, TK, how do I figure out where I'm 10 times better? What is my 10 times better advantage? Is it price? Is it features? Is it something else? How do I figure out what data to tap into and what to believe? What should my revenue data that I tap into be? How should I look at the external data? You may also be figuring out, well, what if I have my ICP, but then how do I mobilize it? How do I track the right things? And how do I generate quality pipeline to actually reach this ICP? So if you want the cheat codes to implement all of this, you want the step-by-step process so you can implement your ICP and you can mobilize it in your go-to-market strategy and you can execute on it and you can drive growth. This is why I created my SaaS go-to-market program. Inside of this program, we do 3 things. 1, we build out your ideal customer profile. As I mentioned with these founders that I was having dinner with and all the founders I've coached, the 300 plus founders that I've helped build an ideal customer profile for, we follow a 29-point process to build out a proper ideal customer profile. Once you have that, then comes the second step. We build out your manifesto. Your manifesto is my framework that I use to build out your messaging, your positioning, your strategic narrative on how you actually attract your ICP into your world. Once you have the ICP and the manifesto, you have your go-to-market strategy. Once you have your go-to-market strategy, the third pillar comes in. That's your Broadway show. The Broadway show is a consistent set of sales and marketing motions that you can run to bring your manifesto to your ICP on a consistent basis so that you're generating pipeline and converting into revenue and unlocking growth. So to join the program, all you have to do is just go to tkkader.com/GTM. tkkader.com/GTM. On that page, you get all the details on exactly how the program works, how much it costs, and how to get started. Now, the better the fit, the better the results. So all we ask is you fill out a little application form. On the application form, I'll ask you a few questions, and I'll personally review that application. And if you're a fit, we're off to the races right away. Typically, founders that join the program are able to revamp their ideal customer profile and build out their manifesto and put it in the market within 3 weeks of joining. And then I support you for a full year to help you execute, iterate, and scale on your go-to-market motions. So just go to tkkader.com/GTM. Now, if you got value from this video, please also smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It just loves it when you do that. If you have a fellow founder, if you have a team member that would get value from this video, please share this video with them. If you're part of a Slack group, WhatsApp group, community of other founders, please share this video with them. It just means the world to us. We put a lot of love into these videos, and we want to serve the entire SaaS and AI community as they're building out their go-to-market motions, especially in this massive platform shift that's happening right now. Also, I drop an episode every single Sunday with actionable strategies and tactics from the trenches on how to grow your SaaS business faster. So be sure to hit that subscribe button and that bell icon. And lastly, remember, everyone needs a strategy for their life and their business. When you are with us, yours is going to be unstoppable. I'm TK, and I'll see you in the next episode or inside the SaaS go-to-market program. Take care, everybody. Free widget that you put together. Let's cut that free widget part. That felt good.